Deshaun Watson restructured. Browns might be up to a little something right now. And what do agents around the NFL think of GMs around the NFL? And who has the toughest quarterback schedules? All that and more coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We love all of our everydayers out there, and we always appreciate it when you hit that subscribe button. And even some of you who listen every single day aren't subscribed. I see the numbers out there. So make sure you subscribe up. It helps us out tremendously on YouTube or wherever you listen to this podcast. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Game Time. Little special offer for our listeners at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Okay, Matt, let's get into the Cleveland Browns and the New England Patriots. By the way, two teams that tried to trade for a certain wide receiver who's still not practicing. Like, things are heating up around the NFL. And we thought, Matt, erroneously, that the rookie quarterback that outplayed his veteran counterpart, admitted by his own coach, would be the starter, and it is not the case. It turns out Jacoby Brissett is going to be the starting quarterback initially for the New England Patriots. What are your thoughts on this move? Do you think it's right, wrong, or do you think it doesn't really matter all that much?
So first off, we are 1 week away from opening day. How about that? Hey. I mean, right around the corner. Wow. Yeah. This time we'll be previewing a Chiefs-Ravens matchup that actually matters. How about that? I mean, we are right around the corner. And I don't know. I mean, I do believe that it's easier to start the veteran and pull him as opposed to the other way around. I mean, I think once you jump in the deep end with a rookie, you pretty much got to sink or swim with them. But I also think Maye is the much better prospect, of course, is a much better athlete considering how bad the line is and surroundings, might give them a better chance to win in terms of playmaking out of structure and just pure athleticism and talent. Now, they must think he could ruin himself a little bit, though. You know, I mean, and that's something you and I don't know the answer to. Like, if the fear is, and it's one of the concerns with Maye, is he's the going to do too much type of guy, that maybe he gets himself into really bad habits and goes backwards.
It's like the running back that's not good enough in pass pro thing. It's like, well, he's fine as a runner. Like, that's not a problem, but we got to make sure he cleans up this other thing that is really important to our football team and important to how he plays and gets on the field. And so we got to clean up his pass pro, then he could be on the field, and then he'll be the number one running back. But right now he can't be that guy because he's got this one thing that we need to work on that really matters a lot. And so maybe there's that one thing, and it's probably similarly related, right? If you're not good in pass pro as a running back, you get your quarterback hurt. If you're not good at protecting yourself as a quarterback, you might get yourself hurt. And so it probably has something to do with that more than anything. And I agree. It probably doesn't matter in the whole scheme of things if he sits for a couple of weeks, if he sits for half the year. He does, I think, have to play at some point because that's the last bit of development, is getting on the field and playing. So, you know, if they start Brissett all year, it doesn't make much sense to me.
What that gets you, you know?
Right, exactly. And so, look, we talked about the CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans last year, and it's hard to compare rookie quarterbacks to an outlier that CJ Stroud was, but we're like, oh man, his weapons are terrible and his line's banged up and stinks. And it's like, well, guess what? It didn't matter because he's good. And so if he's good, he's good. He should play. So the fact that he outplayed, I think he should be out there. But I get the idea of like, look, you don't want to yank him and go that route. So let's just start with the veteran quarterback, and then naturally we'll put the young guy in at some point, let him watch a little bit. I have no problem with that. But you know what? It's such conventional wisdom, Matt, to not yank the young player.
I have mixed feelings about that too. Like,
couldn't, and it doesn't have to be a yanking. Couldn't the team just say, look, Clearly, we're trying to develop a young quarterback. The best thing for this quarterback might be to play a little bit, then sit and watch, and then go back out and play again. It's like, what if the team said, instead of starting Jacoby Brissett for 4 weeks and then putting in the rookie, what if we start the rookie for 4 weeks, sit him for 2 weeks, and then bring him back out?
And you maybe never sit him.
Everybody in advance, that's the plan. So we're not the kid. The plan is to let him play a little, then sit back and watch, learn, then come back in. Is that a worse plan for development than just sitting and then playing?
And even along those lines, I know you can't do this because you have to think, every team thinks they can win the Super Bowl. But if with some dose of reality, couldn't you start Brissett and May play 3 series in week 1?
Or
like, you know what I mean? Like, we want him to play. And
all right, yeah,
we know we're not good.
If we're down 2 scores, guess what? Drake Maye runs out and plays the second half. Yeah. And then next week, Brissett's going to start again.
Yeah, right. I mean, just kind of tell them, but we want to get him in the game. I mean, not that they care about this, but if Brissett plays 17 games, they're going to be one of the most unwatchable teams in the league.
If Brissett's starting, I'm not tuning into a Patriots game. Clearly.
No, right.
Why would I?
First,
And their defense has a chance to be good, and they have a chance to win some games. But to me, if your young quarterback already outplayed the guy, I mean, unless you think he's going to completely hurt himself, I still think that it should be May as much as possible. But
I lean that way too. But I've been in buildings, and I don't want to pretend like that stuff doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, they know the human being. I don't. But man, it's like, it sure looks like he did everything possible to, deserve playing time.
The Cleveland Browns have restructured the contract of Deshaun Watson. Now, Matt, there's not a lot to be gained with a restructure of a guy whose contract's fully guaranteed, because you're not converting money into, you can convert, but basically what you're doing is you're just pushing all of it down the road because you have to pay all of it eventually.
He's getting it.
Right. So what are the Browns doing right now with Deshaun Watson? Because it's not like the simple restructure where he doesn't have guaranteed money, then you make it guaranteed, you turn it into sign bonus, and then and then you're pushing money down the road that way. This has to be something where, and I don't see what the exact details are on the.
Yeah, I can't find it either.
On the restructure, and maybe we'll find out later. But essentially, all you're doing is putting this on your credit card. Is this them saying, look, we've got to pay him whatever it is, $250 million. Well, why not pay him? Why not just put that on the books down the road and Bobby Bonilla it? Not necessarily for him, but for us at least, And so he gets all the money when he gets it, and we spread it out on the books for longer, because this is a team that's way over the cap already to start next season.
So I'm trying to make a point of talking about how different owners have different amount of wealth. The Browns are known as being at the top of the league in cash spending, like in terms of owner taking money out of his pocket or family's pocket or, franchise's pocket and handing it to players. They were already at the top, and now they have to be even like through the roof because he's getting a big chunk now. So that doesn't seem to bother them, and that's an advantage. I mean, that certainly is. The Eagles are led the same way. I mean, they more so than Cincy or Pittsburgh or mom and pop organizations. You know what I mean? That's a big advantage in this league. My concern from a Browns perspective is I don't want to be stuck with Watson a minute longer than I have to because he hasn't played well. And of course, this immediately everyone's going to be like, well, are they going to get Ayuk? Are they say, why are they making this money? And I think you have a pretty good explanation for that.
Well, so there's a couple things on that. One, the 49ers and Ayuk have gone to an interesting place as of the last 24 hours. And that is that the 49ers passed Ayuk's, he got his medical has been cleared. And because his holding in, he was like, sore back. And like, we all know that it wasn't an injury why Brandon Ayuk wasn't practicing.
Of course.
But the 49ers have officially now said, okay, you're cleared to practice. We expect you at practice today, is what they've said.
He's under contract. That's
right.
Kind of the deal.
Yeah. And so that sets the stage for the 49ers to start fighting him, because he hasn't been fined up to this point because he hasn't been holding out. He's been holding in. But now he's cleared to play. So if he doesn't show up, now it's on him. And now the 49ers could potentially I don't even know what the rules are for teams suspending their own players. Could that be something that they do? Then that's how you start taking the game checks away. It's like, well, you're suspended. I don't think you can suspend a player without pay necessarily. So that might, but you can fine a player. So I think fines is the next thing that's going to start happening. It starts ramping up. Like the first practice is a certain amount of thousands of dollars, and then it starts to go up and up and up and up. So expect fines to start rolling in on Brandon Ayuk, and this thing's getting a little bit uglier. And Kyle Shanahan said, basically, all three options are open. They could still sign him, they could trade him, or he could play out on his 5th-year option. And so it sounds like the 49ers are saying show up right now. And so trade's still possible. And we know the Browns are one of those teams. Does Ayuk have a change of heart? And maybe the Browns want to jump back into that. Maybe conversations have begun again, because the reporting goes that the Brandon Ayuk, that there was a deal with Ayuk and the Browns and the Patriots, and there was a deal with the 49ers in both those teams, but Ayuk said no, didn't want to go to those places. Does he decide he wants to go to those places? Does Washington or Pittsburgh pony up what the 49ers want, and he ends up in one of those places? So those are still all possibilities. But I think the Cleveland thing...
real quick, I mean, the Browns, they did this with Watson too. Like, we're out on Watson. He's going to Atlanta or whatever. And then the last minute, at the end, they're like, we'll make him an offer we can't refuse. Maybe
that's where we got here with all the guaranteed money.
Right.
So maybe they could do that and make everybody feel happy about it. And then Ayuk still goes to Cleveland. But I don't think that's why they would clear space. I think this is all about rolling over cap space for next year, because they're already $60 million over the cap. I think they're trying to get their future finances in order, not so much their current finances. So I don't think the Watson move means that the Browns are trading for Brandon Ayuk. Potentially could be somewhat related, but I think it's all about rolling over cash.
And that makes tons of sense. And people don't think about that, but creating space now doesn't mean you detracted from it later. The rollover stuff is very, very real, and you just get ahead of it.
Well, all you do is you raise up your salary cap. So if the salary cap's $300 million, well, guess what? If you have $40 million cap space, now the salary cap's $340 million for you next year.
So from the way I read it, as it stands today on this year's cap, the Browns have the most money of any team in the league, but they're not going to use it all.
Right. And they have the worst cap situation going into next year before they roll it over. Or one.
Exactly. But it's on the horizon. For their sake, I hope it doesn't mean Watson, that it's harder to get away from Watson.
We had our guy, Mike Sando from The Athletic on earlier this week, and go listen to that episode if you haven't, talking about the QB tiers. And he also breaks down now the toughest and easiest quarterback schedule based on those tiers for teams in the NFL. And also on The Athletic, agents were polled about NFL GMs, among other things, which is super interesting. So we'll get to that next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Are you tired after lunch? I know I am, because you are not alone. And in fact, research shows that more than 70% of us hit a wall after lunch. Let a 5 Hour Energy shot help you leap over that wall instead of crashing into it. And it happens to me. I'm drinking my coffee in the morning right now. That wears off quick for me. And in the afternoon, when I'm trying to do more podcasts, when I'm trying to, pick up my son from school and do everything you have to do. And maybe I want to go work out, go to the gym, maybe go play a soul pitch softball game. And it's like 7 p.m. I'm like, I don't even have enough energy to hit an underhand pitch softball sometimes. And so that's where 5 Hour Energy comes in, give you that boost you need in the afternoon after that lunchtime crash, so you can avoid the crash altogether. And if you go to 5hourenergy.com, that is the number 5, hourenergy.com, and get some 5 Hour Energy product today, you can use our promo code LOCKEDONFB to receive 20% off your order. That is LOCKEDONFB, like football, LOCKEDONFB to get 20% off. This offer is only valid through September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. Okay, let's go to the Sando tiers, because I love the Sando tiers so much, and I think it's important for we can rank how we think things are, but this is the way teams look at things. This is the way coaches and GMs think about their own players in their own league. And so, Matt, do you want to preface this by how we start with the toughest QBs versus the easiest QBs in the quarterback schedules according to Mike Sando's quarterback tiers?
Yeah. So, I mean, Sando talked about how there's 5 tiers, and I think they're up to 50 GMs, executives, bigwigs, that vote on all these quarterbacks, rank them. They put them in tier 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5. So then you end up with a cumulative score, and Pat Mahomes is 1, et cetera. So what Mike did is, of course, some of these dudes will get hurt, and you probably won't play out the entire schedule. But I think it's pretty interesting that he decided, if I look at all the scores of these guys, who is slated to play the most difficult slate of upcoming quarterbacks this year. And maybe we could just touch on the top 5 or the easiest 5. And maybe I would even do it or recommend, Mike, they break it down by month or first half of the season, second half of the season. Because if you play, I don't know, AFC North, say the Steelers play the Ravens in week 1 and week 17. Well, there's a much better chance you're going to see Lamar in week 1 than you are in week 17. You know what I mean? That's true for every team. So I don't know. I think it's interesting. It's kind of like a strength of schedule thing.
It's super interesting. And probably a lot of times strength of schedule matters mostly because of the quarterback you're playing. There's not too many teams that have a great quarterback and a bad team. There's more teams that have pretty good everybody else and a bad quarterback, like the New York Jets have been traditionally in the last few years, right? So this is interesting. And and this is why for the Patriots, it's such a rebuilding year because they're averaging a high tier 2 quarterback on their schedule this year. So that's
every week.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with all respect to Brissett, he's not close to that. Maybe someday.
By the way, in Sando's tiers, there was 30 quarterbacks ranked because the rookie quarterbacks didn't count. And Brissett was, as he has been correctly named the starter, he was 30th on the list. So he was last. So the Patriots are, with Brissett, according to GMs, are basically behind everybody except for bad rookie play quarterbacks in the NFL. And they have the toughest opposing QB schedule. So essentially what we're saying here is the New England Patriots are losing the quarterback matchup every single week, all season long.
Every single week. It's going to be a rough year, Pats fans. I mean, I think you know that. But even, again, that kind of brings us back to the beginning of the podcast. It makes me almost want to play May more. It's just like, man, we have very little chance of competing this year. Let's get the rookie in there. But the teams that face the hardest slate of quarterbacks, New England's the worst. That's at 2.27 is the average. You want the lower ones are going to be the better. If it was a 1, it'd be like I play Patrick Mahomes every week. The Raiders are 2. Steelers are 3. The Niners are 4. And Denver's 5. So there's some bad teams in there that face great quarterbacks. Steelers are mediocre, but your Niners, I thought, stood out as a good team that faces really good quarterbacks.
And if you look at the schedules and the teams that are on the schedule, it's no surprise that the New England Patriots are the one questionable team at quarterback, and all 3 are either tier 1 or high tier 2 quarterbacks. They're going. Actually, I take it back. Tua was a tier 3 quarterback. I put him in the tier 2, but he's tier 3 quarterback, right?
I think he was the top of the tier 3.
But the 49ers are playing the AFC East as well this year. So
the AFC East has some quarterbacks.
And so AFC East has some quarterbacks. So the 49ers play Rodgers. They play Stafford twice in their own division. They play Kyler Murray twice in their own division. They play Jordan Love. They play even the other draws. They have Baker Mayfield. They have Caleb Williams in week 14. He might be a superstar by that team and by that time in week 14 too. So the 49ers really have a pretty good quarterback on the other side every single week. The weakest quarterbacks they play are Geno Smith twice and a rookie in Caleb Williams. And then all of a sudden they have a Sam Darnold with which we don't really know. And then they do have Jacoby Brissett's New England Patriots in week 4. So that's the really the only one that is clearly going to be a cakewalk quarterback matchup for them is 1 week in week 4. It's either going to be a rookie who's just got his, I'm imagining the New England Patriots probably saw the schedule and they're like, we got some tough games early. After the 49ers game, week 5, let's put Drake Maye in there.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
So I pulled up the Patriots because since they're the hardest too, their only quote easy quarterbacks are Will Levis and Anthony Richardson, and they're just more unknown to me than easy.
They could both be really good.
Yeah, right, exactly. So not pretty for.
Let's go to the bottom of the list.
All right, bottom of the list, 32nd, Atlanta Falcons.
Everything is starting.
Everything's so easy for this team. It seems like
everything, and like I almost want to. I feel like the Falcons. It's every team that wins the offseason, it never goes that great for them in the regular season, right? No. So I feel like everything feels too good and easy for the Falcons. They have an easy division. They got the quarterback. They got a rookie quarterback too. On top of that, they just went and added a couple of stud defensive names, and they face the easiest quarterback. They're the only team that has average of a tier 3 or worse quarterback they're playing against. and they only have 5 tier 2 quarterback or 4 tier 2 or tier 1 quarterbacks on the entire schedule. And then after that, it's obviously you've got Mayfield and Carr, and then they have the most lower tier quarterbacks, tier 4 quarterbacks, and Daniel Jones and Minshew, and rookie and Daniels, and
Bryce Young
twice, and Bo Nix, another rookie, and then Sam Darnold. So it's almost too easy for this team. Should we be adjusting how we feel like the Atlanta Falcons are going to do, or do we think that we want to let everybody else overrate them, and then you go under on the over-under for the Falcons this year?
Yeah, I mean, it sure seems like, I think I would structure it this way in terms of expectations. You should win the division, Atlanta. Like, if you don't win the division, I would be pretty upset if I was the ownership, considering strength of schedule, strength of quarterback schedule, which of course correlates with one another, the status of your division, what we've invested in the team, made a big coaching change. So expectations should be high for the Falcons, just to put it mildly. So,
and I don't want to give away too much, but I want to tease tomorrow's episode with Aaron Schatz, the godfather of the DVOA stat, who joined us. And we've already recorded that episode. And he has some very interesting takes on what's going to happen in the NFC South and who his favorite team is in that division.
That's really interesting, actually. So the other bottom fivers are Chicago, 31, Jacksonville, Cincy, and the Chargers.
So there you go. If you're basing it on what quarterbacks you're going to face, you like the schedule for the Chargers, Bengals, Jaguars, Bears, and Falcons more than you like the schedule for the teams that have the toughest schedule versus quarterbacks, like the Patriots, Raiders, Steelers, and 49ers, and now and the different Broncos. And so the Broncos are starting a rookie quarterback. The New England Patriots are starting Brissett or a rookie quarterback. The Raiders are starting Gardner Minshew, and we're I think lower than Raiders fans are on what that team is going to be, and we'll see if the plexiglass principle shows up for the Raiders versus what we saw under Antonio Pierce at the end of last year. But if you look at it through this lens, it does really feel like the Patriots, Raiders, and maybe even the Broncos might have a battle for one of the early picks in the NFL draft.
Yeah, and just look at those 5 teams that play the hardest schedule. It's not like any of them. I mean, Purdy's the best quarterback of the group. I mean, none of them have Mahomes or even Herbert, so they're going to be at decisive disadvantages.
Next, let's talk agents. How do agents see the NFL? Today's episode of Peacock Williamson is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. It's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and to level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. And I mean, the Guaranteed Fit is easy. You put in your car's information, there's a big green check mark. You know that part is going to fit. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car into the MVP. Bring home that W. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. This is a really good idea by The Athletic, and by who wrote this article? I want to get it right. Oh, so it's Ben Standing. Yeah, Ben Standing wrote this, and it's similar to the tiers of Mike Sando interviewing, executives and coaches around the NFL to get their opinions anonymously on every quarterback in the NFL and how those are ranked. How about asking agents how they rank the organizations? So I think this is fascinating. And the top 2 organizations, I think here by, according to agents, is the 49ers and the Eagles. And here's a couple of the quotes. The 49ers, the way they treat people and don't skimp on expenses, highly professional. With the 49ers, you have to fit within their culture, but they allow players and employees to be themselves. And they win even while getting the staff poached by other teams every single year. And for the Eagles, every year free agents want to go there. They reward players. Howie Roseman nails the draft. This is easy. The Eagles, one agent said, what an organized group with football and front office business. Every year they are on top of their game.
Yeah. And then Kansas City came in second. And then there's a handful of other teams that got several, more than one vote. So a couple of votes go a long way in this because, I mean, there's 31 agents picking from 32 teams. So the fact that the Eagles and Niners both got 5 votes and the Chiefs got 4 is a pretty strong ringing endorsement.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's probably not a surprise that the teams that have good organizations and win a lot of football games are ranked pretty high here. You know, the Steelers getting votes, the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Packers,
stable, right.
The Miami Dolphins now. They ranked first on the NFLPA report card too.
So did they? Okay.
There's another note by one of the agents was like, this team is liked by agents and by the NFLPAs in Miami. So, and obviously free agents love going to Miami for a number of reasons too. So, I think this is pretty fascinating stuff. And obviously you can go to The Athletic and find all the full articles on all of this, the Sando quarterback tiers and what the agents are saying about teams. But I guess it's not surprising that some of the best organizations and teams that continue to win are the ones that agents like dealing with the most. It's also interesting because different agents are like, oh, it's this team, easy 100%. Another agent's like, oh, it's this other team, easy 100%. That's probably the team that agent has a better job doing.
Oh, yeah. There's some friends thing going on here, too, a little bit, without question. Or maybe one of his clients didn't get along with the Eagles well. You know what I mean? Like, and I got to still represent my clients, and I had one bad experience with the Eagles or whatever. I think that just as interesting, though, is the next question. Which is the most unstable franchise?
Which stood out to you there?
Panthers ran away with it with 9 votes, which is pretty easy.
Again, not surprising, right?
Not surprising. But the Raiders with 7 is pretty strong. Jets, Jags, Cowboys, Cardinals all get 3. So a couple things. A couple of quotes I liked was, one of them said Panthers, but they said, I think the headline for the section should be, for the first time in my career, most organizations are relatively competent. I can only think of a few that aren't run well, starting with Carolina because of the Tepper involvement, which I've been told, and I very much believe, there are many organizations that are not or weren't relatively competent. That's amazing. These are $5 billion organizations that aren't particularly competent. And I thought the Cowboys quote was crazy. And it might play through. And I've kind of mentioned this on the pod here and there. Someone voted for the Cowboys and said, I don't think they want to win above all. Jerry wants to turn profits and make headlines. I think the game has passed him by.
Oh, so we're talking late career Al Davis Raiders is what the future of the Cowboys are.
Yeah, and I'm not sure new Raiders is much different than late career Al Davis Raiders too. And I think that there's, just like any walk of life, I mean, if whoever's in charge starts to lose their fastball, and age will do that to all of us, and has too much power and no one's going to tell them no, you can see where it goes wrong.
I do think that the Jones family structure is more set up to succeed after Jerry than Mark Davis was with the Raiders.
Yes, agree. And the organization has more money and is worth more and more stable, and they're not moving to Vegas and that kind of stuff too. But yeah, I would trust them to get it right more than Al Davis's son,
Some interesting comments on different quarterback contracts and some other things like that. Like the Cardinals, where did the Cardinals go? Here's a quote from an anonymous agent. The Kyler Murray extension is why they are stuck. Why give Kyler that extension and quickly fire the head coach who wanted him and the GM who drafted him? You can't fire the QB.
Yeah, it is interesting. Crazy. The other QB thing that stood out to me is they asked these 31 agents, what if Pat Mahomes hit the free agent market? How much would he get? And 6 guys said $60 million a year. 13 of them said $70 million a year. 5 of them said $75 million a year. And then 6 of them said $100 million or more a year.
So I totally agree with what this, because I heard 60 million and it's like, well,
I'll do
Dak
that RP.
60 million. And that's what one of the agents said. Yeah. Dak has a shot at 60 million. So Mahomes would get at least 70 million. Another 10-year contract with open bidding might get him close to $1 billion overall. He'd be the NFL's Shohei Ohtani one of one. And I totally agree there. It would be something that's completely insane if he was a 100% free agent.
Yeah. The first quote is $100 million per year guaranteed over 5 years. That's probably low. Mahomes, 18 teams would pay that right now.
Oh yeah,
the first
fully
quote.
guaranteed. Whatever you can dream up, it'd be even more because if you think, man, I think my team would bid probably this much. Well, every team would do that, so you have to go way beyond that.
Steelers don't have anyone in the quarterback room next year. You give me Mahomes for $100 million a year on the open market, done. You're the best team in the league then. You know?
The one reason it's different, and I guess we can end on this. And obviously there's a ton of great quotes and interesting.
There it's worth checking out. Yeah.
On this, the difference though, and I think we're starting to see it with the 49ers a little bit. And there's a few teams around the NFL. We started by talking about the Browns and their cap situation. A Mahomes free agent contract will be way bigger than what we saw for Deshaun Watson. And we've already seen like this Deshaun Watson contract is causing some problems for the Browns because there is a salary cap. So if you're the Dodgers or the Yankees, you make a bad contract or you pay $1 billion for a player, there's no cap. You can just keep spending and it's not going to completely ruin you. And we're seeing it with the 49ers now. They're like, okay, well, we're paying like
Russell Wilson's contract.
6-7 star players, and then now we got another star player, and then another guy who's already getting paid a lot, who was making the most of his position when he signed his deal. Well, now wants to still be the most in Trent Williams, and we got to pay him more now. And then you have just a little bit more realities. As much as you can circumvent the cap, there's just more realities there. And the 49ers are a team that make a lot of money. If there was no salary cap, the 49ers would just keep signing guys, right? And the Cowboys would keep.
Oh yeah. So and then Green Bay wouldn't win anymore, and right.
Yeah, exactly. So that is the one difference. And so it essentially probably the team that overpaid and got Pat Mahomes really have a tough time fielding the rest of their roster, but he would make that much money.
Yeah, and you just have a bunch of rookie deals, and right.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. It's good stuff though. Check
Absolutely.
it out.
Thanks everybody for making us your first listen. We've got a lot more coming up. Maybe over under win totals, right? We got to go through
some stuff we got to clean up for next week. Yeah.
Predictions for the season. There's so much more coming up as we have one more week to go before real NFL football begins. And of course, Matt and I have got you covered every step of the way. Appreciate everybody out there making us your first listen. For your second listen, check out any of the 200 podcasts here on the network. Your team is covered no matter the sport. Get ready for those fantasy drafts. I know it's a big fantasy draft weekend. I've got a live fantasy draft I'll be traveling to on Sunday, which is going to be a lot of fun. So tune in to Locked On Fantasy, Locked On Dynasty to get your cheat sheets ready to go, to get your draft strategy ready and dominate your leagues. Matt and I back next time right here, Peacock and Williamson.